All right, so we're covering a lot of concepts here in attempt to build a better concept-based training. Okay, let's talk about the assignment landscape. And this is a new word that I just came up with. Well, I came up with a few years ago. So now let me switch to the iPad. And I try to, on this section, I try to really create a very comprehensive text below the video. So, because I think you will probably reference this again and again as you work on exercises and as you work on creating a course or revising a course. But let me introduce at a high level some of these concepts, and then even after watching the video, go in and do a full read on the text below. And I think that will save you time in digesting and internalizing these concepts. Okay, so this may be a kind of a harsh, blunt view, but I feel like in order for me to pass down things, I just got to be very blunt, even if I'm not being politically correct. So, okay, here's my opinion. A lot of courses, I think 95 to 99% of the courses are too comprehensive. It looks like this. Okay, let me change the color. So, blacks are concepts. So they present all these concepts everywhere. So instructor spends a lot of time trying to build a comprehensive course. They spend 80 to 90% of the time on teaching, creating videos, right? Hours and hours of videos, teaching all of these. And then they have an assignment that basically, assignment 1, where they have to leverage this, assignment 2, like this. It's still a concept-based training. A tutorial-based training is where they actually connect the dots for the students. It's just making them typists, okay? But anyway, even if they didn't do the tutorial base, still in a lot of courses, this is how it looks like. And also, if you already created a curriculum that's super simple and effective, there's a danger that someone new, if they have access to that curriculum, they may be like, oh, but you're not teaching all of these concepts, and they keep adding things. A lot of people, isn't it interesting that new curriculum designer doesn't think a lot about, oh, we really need to remove this. They really, a lot of times, 90% of the time, they want to add new things. But if you keep adding new things and new things and new things, all the concepts that were taught previously become, in the perspective of the students, less important, less important, less important, just because the amount of time they spend on the really important concepts go down in proportion, right? So that's something you just got to be very careful. So a lot of courses, again, are like this, and this is horrible, horrible, okay? Bad, bad, bad. Why is it bad? Well, you're overwhelming the students. Yeah, you fed your ego. Yeah, you're smart. You know a lot of no need to know concepts in my mind, but it makes you look smart because a lot of people don't know these no need to know concepts. So it makes you look smart. And again, that's not the goal. But another problem is there's not enough repetition. You did a single assignment where they had to connect the dots for these 3, and then you have another assignment 2 where they have to connect 4 dots. Do you learn? Just imagine I throw a bunch of Lego blocks out on the floor and say, go in and build a car. And you build it once? Can you then create any type of cars that I throw at you? No, right? So this analogy, you can think about tutorial-based training too. I throw a bunch of Lego blocks. Tutorial-based training would be step 1, pick up this Lego block. Step 2, pick up this Lego block, do this. Step 3, all the way to step 159, and then you have a car. If that's how you learn how to build cars using Lego blocks, and then I say, go in and build a train now, go in and build apartments, go in and build blah, blah, blah. You're going to just keep looking for tutorials. How to build the best car possible using Lego blocks. You're going to Google it and you're going to do follow step-by-step instruction. Tutorial-based training, horrible. But even in a concept-based training, I threw a bunch of Lego blocks. I teach you some of the concepts and say, now build a car. And you only built it once. You're not going to really reach that mastery. But imagine I throw a bunch of Lego blocks. And I intentionally withhold, instead of giving you 100 blocks, I just give you 5 blocks. And say, go in and build a very simple car. So you do it, you make mistakes, but you do it this way and it doesn't work. You do it this way, it works a little bit better, and you do it like this and then it works. You're like, okay, cool. At that point, does the teacher come in and say, oh, but you're not really doing it the best way possible? Well, a good teacher wouldn't do that. This is what a good teacher would do. Say, okay, here are 5 other Lego blocks that you haven't played with. Let me show you how these Lego blocks work. Okay, now that you've learned these additional Lego blocks, go in and build a bicycle. So they struggle, right, initially, but they do it, and then now they kind of get better at creating this. And then I say, oh, okay, go in and create a train now. Okay, I don't give them any more building blocks. I just give them another example, and they build it. And they may only not use all 10 Lego blocks. They may maybe use 7 to build a train versus a bicycle and so forth. But see that analogy, and I throw more blocks. And then I say, okay, yeah, there are all these 80 other blocks, but you could create almost 99% of everything using these 20 blocks anyway, so don't worry about them. And then if you find that you just cannot create something out of these 20 Lego blocks, hey, you can always do research or go to their official documentation, and they will lay out all these 80 other Lego blocks that you probably never really need to use, except in certain scenario, and then you can learn it later. So only really focus on these core 10 or 20 blocks. That's an effective concept-based training, right? So anyway, kind of going back to this graph. Okay, so again, this is, I would really highly recommend after you watch the video, you read the text below. But a mediocre course has the appearance like this. Okay, where a bunch of concepts, and then, oh, here's an assignment where you have to connect all that dots. Oh, here are some other slew of concepts. Oh, here's another one. What's the problem with this? Well, there are several problems. They're not having enough repetitions, right? There's not enough overlap, right? So this is not that effective. Here's another problem. And this one I'm going to introduce a little bit later on too, more in depth. How much time are they spending on this, on learning these concepts? So it's like this. Imagine going back to the Lego block example, I give you 10 blocks. And I give you a 20-hour lecture on how to use the 10 blocks. And then I say, now build this. You're level 0. You never created anything out of Lego blocks. I spent 20 hours teaching you, and then now you have to build your very first thing using Lego blocks? And by the way, what percentage of that 20-hour lecture do you think you were really, really paying attention? We know from research that people only retain about less than 10%, or about 10% of things that they watch in videos when the videos are hours and hours long. It just doesn't work. I fall asleep when I watch videos that's too long. Okay, you probably fall asleep too. If you don't, then that's good for you. But I fall asleep, and I think students fall asleep, or they turn off their brain. They go from active learning to passive learning. Passive learning, they're just watching. They're not really internalizing. So I'll introduce this rule. It's not really a rule, but it's a guideline. It's a 20-minute rule. Okay. What I find to be most effective is 20-minute lesson followed by assignments, series of assignments. 20-minute, maybe it could be 20 minutes. Sometimes it could be less than that. Sometimes it needs to be a little bit more. But as a rule or as a guideline, I really try to challenge myself to teach as much as possible in very simple manner, which is the hard part. How do you teach something complex and make it seem so simple? But that's what teachers do, right? And I try to do that in 20 minutes, immediately followed by assignments. And they may spend hours tinkering and they may revisit the things that you've taught. And then it makes sense, right? Maybe when they heard your lecture or read your content and watched video for the first time, they maybe really only internalized 10% of your knowledge. But then by working on these series of assignments where they have to connect the dots, now they're understanding 20%, 40%, 60%, 80% of what you have taught. And then you add another assignment and another assignment, introduce advanced concept, another assignment, and then, they reach that mastery. Okay. So, going back to this, that course that I shown, that's also a mediocre course. A good course looks like this. Okay. I introduced some assignments or some concepts. I tried to do that in 20-minute chunk. Less, more or less that. Followed immediately by assignments. It doesn't mean it takes 20 minutes for them to really internalize. Just as they initially take 20 minutes to read or watch videos, and then they immediately go into assignment. Okay, and maybe this assignment, they have to, a series of small assignments where they have to, there is enough repetition built in assignment 1. And then we teach another concept. And now they do an assignment where they have to connect these 3 dots. And then you may say, do you know what? Now that they did this, let me do another assignment where they have to do this, internalize that. You never connect the dots. It's the student's job for them to connect the dots. And then you say, now that they reached that mastery, let me teach this concept. Okay, let me throw in an assignment that does this. And then once that is done, okay, let me introduce another concept. And this is a difficult concept. So after they learn that, let me throw in another assignment. And then, you say, okay, let me do another assignment where they have to internalize all of that. This is the assignment landscape where it's good. This is a good course. And if you're creating a course from beginning, this is what you need to focus on, where all the concepts here are the must-to-knows. You've intentionally blocked out, or you're not teaching the nice-to-knows or no need to know. No need to know just do not need to be part of your course unless you create a course that's for very, very advanced, level 15 developer who already spent years using that technology. But if you're creating a course for beginners of that technology, do not ever bring up any of the no need to knows. But again, if the student comes back and keep telling you, why do you not teach these no need to know concepts? Then it's time to add that in the platform and say, oh, by the way, here are some no need to know concepts. And you don't label it no need to know. You don't want to be rude to the student, but you say, but the reason I didn't intentionally teach it was X, Y, and Z. For example, for CSS, yeah, there are all these properties, but you can actually create everything without it. Plus, the reason I don't teach it is some of the older browsers and different browsers do not support these yet. So you may learn about some of these all cool latest syntaxes and things, but if say 5% of the people just do not use browsers that support those, do you think your boss wants you to use these properties? No. So that's why I don't teach these intentionally, right? And that kind of improves the students' mood, their perspective, their appreciation about the course, why you designed the course that you did. Okay, so that's what you can do with the no need to know, but you don't need to do that with every no need to know. You only do that if students just keep coming back to you and say, why do you not teach X, Y, and Z, right? But okay, so this is a good course. What you can do after you really master this, and then more than 95% of the students who take this really effectively get to that mastery in a very short amount of time, then it's time to add the nice to know. So then once this is done, then right after that's done, it's like you close that chapter and say, okay, here are some other nice to knows concept. And I'm teaching this because this, you may see some of these, during interviews or, when you're going through Stack Overflow or blah, blah, blah. You're not going to do assignments because, you really just focus on the fundamentals, but you let them know and you can introduce that after the must-to-know concepts and assignments were all presented, they leveled up. Then you present the nice-to-knows, okay? And then you can then say, oh, here are the other concepts I've intentionally not taught for these reasons, okay? This is how the best course looks like. So again, after you watch this, go ahead and scroll down and make sure you read the concepts. I try to recreate the graphs as similar as the graph that I created earlier, which are shown below the video. But so it may look slightly different. But anyway, go ahead and read it and then proceed with the next section when you're ready.